Tomorrow night, we have the much anticipated return of Manny Pacquiao making a 2-year return to the ring. Does the 42-year-old senator have what it takes to compete with the best in the world? Let's talk about it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Fight Talk 2021. We have a special boxing edition because we got some good boxing this weekend. Manny Pacquiao is making his return to the ring after 2 years, being 42 years old. Just gotta say, if I was wearing a hat, hats off to him. Side note, don't you hate when people do that? Floyd Mayweather does that all the time. He's like, hats off to him, and he's wearing a hat. Take the hat off. But hats off to Manny Pacquiao. And speaking of Floyd, people say, Floyd's fighting YouTuber and Tenshin Nasukawa, and you got Pacquiao over here being 42 years old, and he's fighting the best in the world, was scheduled to fight one of the best, arguably the best, welterweight, Errol Spence Jr. Now is facing Yordenis Ugas. I am equally excited for this fight, I have to say. We got these guys right here facing off, and something about this fight that I want to add, it doesn't come without controversy. It's kind of under the table, lion under the bed, the monster under the bed controversy. Oh, controversy in boxing. Big surprise. Wow, didn't see that one coming, but of course there is. Now, if you notice something about this picture right here, they're both holding belts. And they look to be the same belts. They're not technically the same belts, but yes, they are the same belts. They are both WBA belts. And I want to talk about that real quick before we get into this fight and what this fight means. Pacquiao was the WBA champion, the WBA super champion, because within boxing, you have 4 major organizations. The WBA themselves even break apart their belts in there, making it super confusing for the average person. I promise I'll make a video on it one day. I always say I will, but I promise I will. But we'll cover it a little bit right now. So Pacquiao was the WBA champion, super champion, and was to fight Errol Spence Jr., the IBF and WBC champ. It should have been a unification of 3 belts, but over the pandemic, with Pacquiao's layoff, the WBC elevated him to champion in recess, whatever that means. And from there, they gave Ugas, who had the opportunity to fight for the regular title, became champion. Then they elevated him to super champion, having never defended the regular title, and had another person fight for the regular title just a month later. Why would they do that? Fees. Sanctioning fees. The WBA is able to charge up to 2% of the fight purse, I think at a max ceiling of $200,000 per WBA belt on the line. So, that being said, they stripped Pacquiao. Pacquiao was no longer the champion, but then when he was still supposed to fight Errol Spence, they said the WBC president, Gilberto Mendoza, came out and said, hey, we're going to do the right thing, and we're going to look to reinstate Pacquiao. No, what you want is some of that pay-per-view sanctioning money. That's what they wanted. But they put themselves in a bad position. They already shot themselves in the foot because they gave away their other belts. So what do? You take away Ugas's belt. You take away James's regular champion. Exactly. So, right there, they kind of shot themselves in the foot. And I want to show something real quick. I want to show kind of an example of the WBA and how much, because I really don't like these guys, if you couldn't tell. So right here, we have the Boxing Commission holding WBA's feet to the fire with scathing letter, I can't even talk, threatening not to sanction belts. So the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commissions that oversees USA and Canada, gave an official warning letter to WBA President Gilberto Mendoza stating they will remove recognition of the WBA and no longer sanction WBA title belts unless they make significant efforts to reduce the number of WBA title belts in each division immediately. So they said it's come to their attention. I think this has to do with this Pacquiao situation. The fact that Pacquiao was the champion. So look right here. The ABC is concerned that promoting multiple world, for example, gold championship, super championship, world championship, and numerous interim championships in each weight class is misleading to the public and boxers. It is. And then, of course, we get this. Mendoza. WBA will definitely reduce the number of titles. WBA President Gilberto Mendoza stated that the WBA will immediately begin to order title consolidation bouts to reduce the number of title holders. Yeah, of course you will, because you got a talking to. You got put in the corner. So now it is what it is, right? And then we got this little picture for you. I don't know if you can see what it says here. A plan is coming. This is a quote from WB President Gilberto Mendoza. A plan is coming. We are not looking to do it for popularity, but we are going to definitely reduce the number of titles. It is something that the public has asked for, and we're going to do it, even if I am not 100% in agreement with that change. Of course you're not. The guy can't even pretend to be for the boxing public. So, anyways, one of the reasons that I liked this fight against Ugas was because Ugas was promoted to the super champion for the WBA, and Pacquiao was wrongfully taking the title. Now, you could say, hey, he was out for 2 years. We had the whole pandemic. We had all of that. And it would make sense if there wasn't already a precedent. The super belt is supposed to be there so you don't really have to defend it. That's the whole point. Do I agree with it? No. Does it kind of make sense? Sure. But when Pacquiao unified the WBA against Keith one-time Thurman, Keith Thurman was out for 2 years. So the precedent was already set. He was actually out for, I want to say, 28 months. Pacquiao's been out for 25. So the precedent's already been set. But, of course, the WBA during the pandemic lost a lot of sanctioning money. So they had, to go the evil boxing dictator route, of course. And I want to play one other thing because I'm still not done with this whole WBA rant. Let me share this real quick. I'll kind of turn this up so hopefully you guys can hear it. Let me share this.
A WBA belt is on the line in this fight. It's one of 43 belts the WBA has handed out across its 17 weight classes. The relationship between sanctioned bodies and fighters, it should be symbiotic. The WBA's relationship with boxing is parasitic. They are fee-gobbling bloodsuckers who have done nothing but damage this sport. Until they clean it up, boxing would be a lot better if all the fighters with WBA belts, including the winner of this one, throws those belts in the trash.
Ooh, pretty savage of Chris Mannix, but that's crazy. You have somebody from the zone, a top guy, saying, hey, they need to throw these belts in the trash. We're talking about 17 weight classes, which is already too many weight classes in boxing, and they have 43 titles across those weight classes, and I have some examples of that too, because now we're just basically, this is a podcast of, hey, let's just go in on the WBA. Check this out. List of current world boxing champions. You go down and you see you got the WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO, the ring. Sometimes the WBC has interim champions, and then they have their franchise champion. So the WBC is honestly almost getting just as bad, but you'll see right here, interim champion. Daniel Dubois just lost before this too. He had no business fight for an interim championship. Regular champion, super champion, of course, super champion, regular champion. If they have at least 2 champions in each division, if not 3, every single division, every division. Look, 3 champions, 3 champions, 3 champions. It's insane. It is insane. But the whole point of boxing right now is we want to consolidate these belts. We want to have these unification fights. I think these are the moves to go, and this is the right move. At the end of the day, I would love for these unified, undisputed champions to all say, hey, we should do away with these belts. There should only be one belt that we recognize. But until then, the WBA still recognized we need to, I guess, play ball at the moment. So that being said, my man Spence was pulled from the fight. He had a torn retina. He is now going into surgery. He said, I will fight the winner. So this unification will still happen, whether it's Pacquiao or now Ugas. The WBA will be unified with the IBF and the WBC, and I am happy about that. Now let's talk about Ugas. Some people might say, who is this guy? If you don't watch boxing, you don't know this guy. But if you do know this guy. I'll play this, while I'm talking about him. This dude is a Cuban. So, Cubans are very slick. Cubans are very good at boxing. They know how to box. And right here, this is from his WBC title fight against Sean Porter. This was a vacant title, and this was a split decision fight. Sean Porter is one of the toughest, most rugged guys. Fought to a split decision against the champion, Errol Spence Jr. A lot of people thought that should have been closer. Some people thought Porter won pretty unanimously. The consensus is that Spence won. But check this out at the end. You got Ugas going back to or toe-to-toe with Porter. And then he dropped him in one of these exchanges. But he's going super slick, toe-to-toe with him. This guy, when you do the fight math, typically you can never, you say like, oh, right here, boom, drops him, and they called it a slip. They called it a slip. Typically, you can't do the whole fight math, like I was saying. You can't say, oh, this guy can beat this guy because this guy beat this guy. Styles make fights. But when it comes to the level of top level welterweight fighters, Ugas is right up there. Ugas fought to a split decision against, now right here are the scorecards of Porter versus Ugas. Split decision for that WBC belt. And they didn't count that knockdown in the 12th round. So 2 cards were right here for Porter. 1 was for Ugas. If you look at this one, the closest one, 115, 113, you go to round 12. They gave round 12 to Porter. Had they counted that knockdown, it would have flipped this round and it would have been a 10-8. And then Ugas would have won the WBC title had they counted that knockdown. So right now, you can argue that Ugas should have been a world champion already. He should have already fought Errol Spence Jr. Ugas is right up there with the top of them. I love this fight. I think this is a great fight. Again, it is going to unify the WBA. And right here, we'll see, was it a knockdown? If this will play right here. Look at this. You be the judge. You be the judge. Boom. Looks like he hit him with a punch to me. Boom. And then, of course, you see Spence versus Porter. That was a split decision as well. So when you do this, quote, fight math, Ugas is right up there with the top of them. Now, how does this fight play out with Ugas versus Pacquiao? That's what we're talking about here, right? Who knows? Ugas is now a right-handed. Pacquiao was looking to fight a southpaw. Super slick boxer, but down to scrap in the prime of his life. I don't know. I think it comes down to, does Pacquiao still have it? When he was 40, 2 years ago, came out, had a tremendous performance against not only Broner, but Keith one-time Thurman. So now that he's going to fight Ugas, but after 2-year layoff, typically likes to stay in shape, but these past 2 years have been pretty odd. There's been times where the gym has been closed. There's been times where people were quarantined. He's been working as a senator. Was he working out that whole time? And when you have layoffs like that at an older age, Father Time can just get in there even quicker. So do you guys think we're going to see a Manny Pacquiao who comes out there and dominates and shows us that he's the Manny Pacquiao of old? Maybe. But a couple years ago, 4 years ago, he lost to Jeff Horn. You know what I mean? He lost, just kind of random fights. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited for the fight either way. And what I would really like to see after this, speaking of Porter, you had Porter ordered by the WBO to be the mandatory for Terrence Crawford. As of this moment, as of this video, that fight is going to purse bids, meaning that fight will happen. It just depends on who's going to buy it. Top Rank and PBC couldn't come to terms on it. Who's going to order the purses? Who's going to bid the most for the fight? So I believe that fight's going to happen. I don't think Terrence Crawford's going to vacate his WBO because of that fight, right? That would be just terrible and the worst thing that he could do. That's the only leverage that he has. So if Porter wins, Porter brings that belt right back to PBC. If Crawford wins, then that sets up Crawford versus the winner of Pacquiao versus Ugas versus Errol Spence Jr. So there's a way that in the next 2 years, all these belts are finally going to be unified and undisputed. But if the winner of Pacquiao versus Ugas fights Errol Spence Jr., whether it be Pacquiao, whether it be Ugas, and then sets up a super fight with Terrence Crawford, we're looking at all of this waiting around, like, are we seeing Spence versus Crawford? It might make it all worthwhile. It's not one of those Pacquiao versus Mayweather things where it happened 5 years too late. No, it'll be for all the belts, all the marbles on the line, making it even sweeter fight. Or it could be Ugas versus Crawford. It could be Ugas versus Porter too. I think that's a good fight to make. Even if Porter beats Crawford, you have Spence versus Porter too. That was a great fight. We have rematches. We have great fights. And I think 147 right now in boxing is one of the top divisions. So what do you guys think? Who's going to win? Pacquiao, Ugas? Are you excited for this fight? Do you think Pacquiao needs to retire? Let me know what you think. And we'll see what happens tomorrow night. Take care.